Okay, guys, and we're back with another episode of the Seth Solo Side Quest, and we've got a special episode again for episode 70, the Pig 70. We've got an episode, we're talking about the Nord Stream 2 pipeline explosion. We're talking about did the US blow it up? I think they did, in my opinion, but we're gonna look into it. We're gonna talk about it. It's gonna be a bit more of one of our more structured videos, more thought out. A lot of research went into this video, so we're gonna get straight into it. So like I said, it's a Seth Solo side quest. This is the podcast where it can get messy, you know, and no one wants to accept the answer, but we're gonna try and find the truth in this episode, right? So we're diving into one of the wildest, most explosive conspiracy theories of the Ukraine war, and I'm not talking about some weird TikTok rumor, you know. I'm talking about Nord Stream 2, the $11 billion gas pipeline that mysteriously blew up in 2022. And the growing mountain of evidence suggests that someone wanted it gone. Now, someone really wanted it gone. Now, before you roll your eyes and say, Seth, is this just Russian propaganda? Hear me out. Because what if I told you the US government had motive, means, and a history of plausible deniability? We're going to get into, some geopolitics, shadow wars, and what really might be buried at the bottom of the Baltic Sea. But first, let's go back a step. Let's rewind. Nord Stream 2 was a natural gas pipeline running from Russia to Germany, built to bypass Ukraine and pump cheap energy straight into Europe. But this wasn't just about heating homes, it was Putin's economic lifeline. Europe relied on Russian gas, and Nord Stream 2 gave Putin enormous political power. Now, enter the US. For years, Washington hated this pipeline. Why? Because it made Europe dependent on Russia, weakened NATO unity, and if we're being honest, it hurt America's bottom line. It hurt Americans' liquid natural gas exports. So in 2021, Biden slapped sanctions on the project, calling it a bad deal for Europe. But then Russia invaded Ukraine in February 2022. And suddenly, Nord Stream 2 wasn't just a pipeline, it was a symbol Europe needed to destroy to punish Putin. But how do you kill a 760-mile underwater pipeline? Well, think about it, you blow it up. Then we go from February 2022, when Russia invaded Ukraine. We then fast forward to September 2022, when four massive leaks erupt in Nord Stream 1 and 2. Seismic sensors in Sweden detect explosions equivalent to 500 kilograms of TNT. Now, the EU calls it sabotage. Russia blames the West, the US blames Russia. And everyone is left sort of in that Spider Man meme when they're just pointing at each other. Everyone's left saying, who actually benefited from this? But let's break it down. If Russia blew up its own pipeline, it'd be like setting fire to $1 billion bill. Plus, they lose leverage over Europe. But if someone else did it, suddenly Europe's forced to quit Russian gas cold turkey, and guess who's selling liquid natural gas to Europe at 400% markup? Cough, cough, wink, wink, American fracking companies. But here's the kicker. Just weeks before the explosion, Biden openly said, if Russia invades, there will no longer be a Nord Stream 2. We will bring an end to it. A reporter asks how. Biden smirks. Biden was not as geeked and not as sleepy as everyone thinks. He responds to the reporter by smirking, saying, "I promise you, we'll be able to do it." Four, 3 or 4 weeks later, boom. Coincidence? Maybe. But when the CIA director later says no one should be surprised if Russia attacks its own infrastructure, it starts to feel like we're all a part of a scripted game. Okay, now let's get into the nitty gritty. Because in 2023, journalist Seymour Hersh drops a bombshell report claiming that the US Navy planted explosives on Nord Stream 2 months before the attack. With the help of Norway, Biden greenlit this operation to send a message to Putin. The White House called it utter fiction, but Hersh isn't some random blogger. He exposed massacres and CIA torture programs. He's a clued up guy, and his sources claim that US divers disguised a NATO exercise, planted remote triggered bombs, and even timed the explosion after Russia moved its ships away. But wait, if the US actually did it, why hasn't Russia released proof? Why has there been no UN investigation? Well, here's the thing: blowing up infrastructure in international waters is an act of war. It is. So if the US did do it, they'd never admit it, and Russia can't prove it without looking weak. US, very cheeky with the plausible deniability. I love it. It's the oldest trick in the CIA playbook. Okay, now we're gonna go into our Hitman 3 stealth mode. Because the real question is, how on earth do you pull off a mission like this without getting caught? And it comes down to three things. One, you use proxies. You hire a third country, like Norway, to handle the logistics. They're close to the ground. They can get it done under everyone's nose, where US couldn't really do that. Because everyone will be like, okay, well, what on earth is America doing round here? They use Norway. Someone who we don't raise any eyebrows by being there, right? That's one, you use proxies. Two, you model the evidence. You use untraceable explosives. That's what they did. Even now, like I said, it's not been investigated. It's not been, you know, do you know what I mean? Nothing. They're not really investigating the US for it. They're not saying US committed an act of war. So it was muddy the evidence. Number three, you control the narrative. You let Russia take the blame. The US are not going to be coming out here begging to take, responsibility for doing this. If everyone thinks Russia blew up their own pipeline, let everyone think Russia blew up their own pipeline. That doesn't that narrative does not hurt us at all. Let them get on with it. So that's what they did. Those three things. They used proxies, they muddled the evidence, and they controlled the narrative. And guess what? It worked. Western media ran with it. They ran with the idea that the Russia did it angle, despite zero evidence. Even Germany, who also lost their gas supply, quietly dropped the investigation. Why? Because accusing the US would fracture NATO. And that's what Putin wants at the end of the day. That's exactly what Putin wants. But here's the twist. In 2024, German officials admitted they found traces of Ukrainian-linked explosives on a yacht near the blast site. Wait, Ukraine? Now we're in the Scooby-Doo territory. Was this a false flag, a rogue op, or just more fog of war? Who knows? But the confusion itself is the point. When everybody's a suspect, nobody's guilty. But you're sitting at home right now, listening to this video, watching this video, probably geeked, spliffing your hand maybe, playing some games. And you're asking yourself, why should you care about a pipeline supply that most people can't find out on a map? Number one, energy is a weapon. Nord Stream's destruction spiked global gas prices, crippled Europe's economy, and made the US the world's top liquid natural gas exporter. All you have to do is follow the money. Number two, escalation risks. If Russia did retaliate, we're talking cyber attacks, assassinations, maybe worse. And three, the truth dies in the dark. If governments can sabotage critical infrastructure and gaslight the public, what can't they do? Now, let's be honest, this isn't just about pipelines. It's about accountability. If the US did this, it's a massive abuse of power. If Russia did it, it's terrorism. But when both sides lie, we're left with this sort of no one's investigated, just a bunch of accusations, and no one really knows what happened. It's just sort of going to be forgotten about. Like I said, the truth dies in the dark. If everyone's sort of trying to finger point about who done it, and we don't find out who actually done it, then again, they've kind of just got us exactly what they want us to do in terms of we're getting bogged down in these other things. Meanwhile, the prices have spiked. US has made their money out of us. Do you know what I mean? Europe's, made their money out of, or Europe's spent their money. Europe's lost their money. It's done now. So we're left in this sort of weird situation where, like I said, no one knows what's going on. And this is what happens when we give these countries this amount of power to sort of run amok. And when they're left to do so, that's exactly what they do. Now, Here's the uncomfortable and unfortunate truth. We'll never get a straight answer. The Nord Stream explosion is the ultimate Rorschach test. What you believe depends on who you trust. But let's be real. Let's keep it a buck. The US has a long history of covert ops: Vietnam, Nicaragua, Iraq, and now maybe Nord Stream 2. So, what do you think? Was this a justified strike to defund Putin's war machine, or a reckless act of economic warfare that set a terrifying precedent? I'd be super interested to know what you guys think about this whole sort of situation and the future of European gas, and will Russia rebuild the pipeline, rebuild more pipelines? How is that this destruction of a major European infrastructure going to impact future potential European infrastructure in it getting built, or it maybe not getting built? Leave your thoughts in the comments below and let me know. Do you think the US did this? I'd be curious to know.